with this 6 weeks. Oh yeah, actually 2 months off really. Yeah, Mike is actually normally up and about, but I know he rises early anyway. But he's probably doing things with his kiddo, or his grandkid, more correctly. Hey, well, welcome everybody to Talking Niagara with myself and Dave. How you doing, Dave?
Pretty good. How about
Yeah,
you?
yeah, not too bad. So one of the stories we didn't get to yesterday was about Republicans portraying the this Canadian border as a threat, yet they're not listening to the statistics of this. So Michael Guest, who's a Mississippi Republican, a Southern Republican who doesn't know anything about the Canadian border, is claiming that the Trump administration's crackdown on the southern border has driven Mexican cartels to shift their criminal enterprises to the Canadian border. And he's saying illegal crossings have begun to shift north, and drug seizures at the northern border are steadily increasing, reaching record levels this year. But when this was at an inquiry a Congress inquiry, and they called along people from the Department of Homeland Security who said drug seizures along the Canadian border are down 55%. And
Yeah,
illegal crossings are down as well,
this is like the incredible ignorance that follows the Americans around. I would say that it's even Democrats that are very ignorant, but the ignorance of Canada and the United States is insanely high. But they are an egocentric society, and they're a very ignorant society.
Yeah,
they're educated, or among the best educated of the world, but that's a small percentage of the population.
But they still don't know where the Canadian border is.
Yeah, most of them don't. I've gone down there, and friends of mine have gone down, and they didn't even know that Canada was so the ignorance level among the Americans is very high. That's why the Republicans get away with something like this. So they can go in and they can say, oh, Canada's a real threat. There's all kinds of drugs coming in. That's because the pumpkin said so. Now, the pumpkin said there was all this fentanyl problem, and when we examined it, it was like about 40 pounds a year. That's a lot of fentanyl, and it has the potential to kill a lot of people. But nothing was talked about on the amount of drugs that come from the United States into Canada. It also, the pumpkin also said there was all kinds of illegals coming in from Canada. Yeah, there were, but it was also going the other way as well. There was lots of people escaping the U.S. trying to get into Canada when the refugee status and stuff didn't work out. There's Mike. I know Mike. And so when you have a largely ignorant population and then you can get away with stuff like this. You can scare people. Nothing that the American politicians, whether they're Democrat or Republican, like better than to be able to scare people and to utilize the ignorance of the average person. But the problem with American politicians is they're pretty damn ignorant themselves. Imagine saying something that has no facts. Imagine walking into a place and saying the Canadian border is a real threat to us. They even thought it might be a military threat. And when asked about any kind of military actions or terrorist type regimes arming up in Canada and trying to come across the Canadian border, I think the military just kind of politely said, oh, no, that's not a problem. It may be a problem in the southern border where you have drug cartels and all that, but you're not going to find armed groups coming from Canada. And if it did, it would be a real anomaly anyway.
And it's almost as if it's been said that, it's almost as if this is, they're saying this as if it's an easy drive from Mexico to Canada to get in through the northern border. You just hop skip around the USA in a car and drive in the northern border. Yeah.
Well, let's make this very clear. Like the United States, Canada as well, but the United States in particular has an insatiable appetite for drugs. insatiable appetite for cocaine, insatiable appetite for fentanyl, and we do here as well. This is the main problem, is this incredible appetite for illicit drugs that our populations have. You're a criminal enterprise. You're going to find a way to get those drugs to market, aren't you?
Yeah.
And of course, the Mexicans have probably tried to take their drugs, get them into Canada, and then try to bring them into market through Canada. But it also goes the other way as well. We've had, I don't know, when all this stuff started happening, the fentanyl tariffs, when they started coming in, there was a huge bust in Toronto, a big, huge cocaine bust. And guess where that cocaine came from? Well, the United States. So drug traffic goes both ways. Refugee status goes both ways. But it's the good guy, bad guy that politicians in the States like to exploit. It's good guy, bad guy stuff. Canada bad. Canada got fentanyl. And yet, when they talked about that, then they swing down to Mexico, which is much more of a threat to the United States society because of the amount of drugs that can get through and can be manufactured in Mexico. And even if they're not manufactured in Mexico, they can come from somewhere else. And there's they'll find all kinds of ways of getting through the borders there.
Yeah.
Now, do we want them to turn around and start getting really difficult with Mexico? No, Mexico's got a problem. And one of the problems is the insatiable appetite for drugs that they have in the United States.
Yeah.
I think that is the forever problem, is the insatiable appetite we have for drugs. Any criminal organization that finds itself to have an appetite waiting. Look at what happened in Prohibition.
Yeah.
Look at all the different gangs and organized crime got organized because of Prohibition. They made alcohol illegal, and the United States had an insatiable appetite for alcohol. Well, guess what? A lot of criminals made a lot of money, and no matter how many times you busted them, they found a way to get in or make some more. And that's the same with fentanyl, unfortunately. And the United States, well, especially with the pumpkin in charge, they like to blame everybody else. They like to point the blame at other countries. And then if they're not pointing the blame at other countries inside their own countries, they'll point the blame at those communist Democrats. I'm enjoying that quite a bit lately about the communist Democrats. But in any case, with this particular article, it's mostly about BS. Check the facts. Check the facts, ma'am. Just the facts. But they don't like to do that, because if they have a convenient bad guy, if they can make Canada a bad guy conveniently, so they can. Particularly when the Republican Party is really failing badly on these trade negotiations. And the pumpkin, they're empowering the pumpkin to have his stupid little wars and so on and so forth.
Well, yeah, I don't like war. Don't like any form of war. All right. Okay.
Well, we thought that the pumpkin didn't like war either, did we? He said he was the peace pumpkin.
Yeah, and basically Rick is saying that it's Carney's fault, right? If only Randy is also saying, if only we we had all of that money Carney has laundered over to Ukraine and kept here to invest in our own security. Yeah. Well, Carney's not responsible.
Let me see the proof of that.
But, there's a lot. Well, I understand what you're saying, Dave, but also remember, it's not Carney necessarily, but more so Trudeau.
Well, Trudeau was a numbskull for sure. That was bothersome for me the whole time he was in. But if you're talking about crime families, And if you talk about the Carney crime family, the Trump crime family, the Biden crime family, let me put it this way: the Biden crime family looks like a bunch of shoplifters compared to the Trump crime family. Man, look at the Bitcoin scams they've got going, the medallion scams they got going, the phone scam they got going. Anyone got their Trump phone yet? Like these, and all the money that Doha and the Emirates are investing in Kushner and stuff, making no money off it, but putting money into with him to invest, which they're not getting any return on. But they're actually, what they're doing is buying a backdoor into the White House. And yeah, so you can't, I mean, the Biden crime family, like I said, like with Hunter Biden and all that, and I mean, it looks like like I said, it compares to a gang of shoplifters compared to the mafia, you know.
Okay. All right. So, and to come back, Carney was holding the Trudeau strings.
That's another good. That's another good conspiracy theory.
Yeah. How do we track war money that we should invest in? Our country?
Well, right now, unfortunately, the way things are going, and when that war began with Ukraine and Russia, I just kept saying, stop it while you got a chance, stop it now. But NATO and their dumbass NATO and dumbass US, trying to expand NATO, got us hooked into this situation. If we do not support Ukraine now, then Russia will get stronger the whole way. So now we are kind of forced in for our own safety, basically, is to finance the Ukrainians. Remember back in the Second World War, Canada went to war in September 1939. The United States did not go to war until the December of 1941. Well over 2 years later.
Yeah.
In that meantime, the United States did not want to get into the war at all, but it saw that it did not want Nazi Germany to get too strong, but it didn't want to fight Nazi Germany itself. So what it did, was it give us all kinds of weapons and tanks and oil and gas or anything we needed for it to pursue the war. So we were to pay them back later.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much what we're doing now to Ukraine, in order to make sure that Russia does not get any stronger or does not threaten the rest of Europe, which would then threaten Canada eventually, or the West. We are financing part of the war on Ukraine's side. We've also had treaties with Ukraine, and the U.S. had its treaty with Ukraine saying that if you give up your nuclear weapons, we'll support you and protect you. Well, we see what happened there. So we're kind of forced to pay money into Ukraine to make sure that it doesn't collapse. Because if it does collapse, then Russia gets stronger and then threatens the rest of NATO, and we are a NATO member. So if they start, let's say the USSR or Russia beats up on Ukraine, then moves to hit Estonia, then we're going to be involved in the war because we're going to have to send actual soldiers there. Yeah. So the very idea here is to support Ukraine enough to keep Russia as weak as possible and hope that the war dies out just by pure fatigue, basically.
Yeah.
And it will, and then I don't know. We kind of forced into it right now. So unfortunately, that's the case.
I wish I'd have seen this article that we're coming up to now yesterday morning, not this morning. I went down Lake Street yesterday, and there's a missing tree and a great big stump that is kind of out the ground at that angle.
Yeah, I was driving through that. I come off the St. Catharines Skyway there, and I could see, well, as I'm going down Sampan Hill, I could see this huge foreboding black cloud in the distance, and I moved closer and closer into that, and I was visiting people that had rented a place on the lake there, off the North Service Road, just outside the city, well, closer to Jordan. Anyway, yeah. It was a huge storm and pushed everything around, and a massive windstorm. And when I got to my friend's place, their electricity was out, and I stayed there for a couple of hours. And the whole time the electricity was out.
Well, it's interesting because the Canada Day windstorm, basically it hit St. Catharines quite a lot. And on Lake Street, basically it toppled a tree over, which got toppled onto a car. And whilst there was somebody trapped in it, they actually got out. I was have the JC code. Okay, don't know. All right. Okay. Yeah, so there was a tree toppled, there was a tree that was clearly had been toppled over. It had been sliced up. The tree had been taken away. So I'm looking at this tree stump thinking, what the heck? Because it's completely lifted out of the ground.
Yes, I know. Yeah. So that's the power of the storms.
Yeah.
And my old neighbor, my old house on Ontario Avenue, he used to complain about the trees on the boulevard. I thought they were my trees. I said, no, they're city trees. I says, I called the city in to fix them a couple of times, and or I don't know, or they just did, and he wanted that tree to be gone. And I said, I can't do that. That's a city tree. And he thought I was lying to him. And I said, no, it's a city tree. If you want something done with that city tree, if you want to take that, ask them to cut that down, that's no problem for me, right? But it's not my tree. I can't do anything about it.
Yeah, yeah.
And a little later on, there was a big storm, and guess what? That tree fell over and crushed both of his cars.
Both of his cars?
Yeah.
Oh dear, that's unfortunate for him. I'm sorry about that. Anyway, okay, so yeah, they spent much of the day clearing up. When I got into St. Catharines yesterday morning, it was all calm, of course.
Yeah, of course, yeah. Well, it calmed down really quite rapidly. So by the time I got to my destination, it was still raining, but the wind had gone down. And I get there, and there's of course no power in the house, but there's all people there because it's a big family get together, and it's very calm. You could walk right out on the patio and look over Lake Ontario, and it was calm.
Yeah,
even within a very short period of time, you could see Hogtown across the lake. Like,
well, that's the way these things go sometimes, So St. Catharines got clobbered on a Canada Day windstorm, but yet on the following day there was hardly anything there.
Yeah,
no signs of it. Yep. Okay. A couple of comments in this regard. It was like 40 miles. Was like a 40-mile wide wind tunnel. Okay. All right. I'm still looking for my house and Dorothy, said Rick. Wish you well with that one, Rick. Did he sue the city? Did who sue the city?
Oh, I don't know whatever came of that. They took a little. I think they ran into trouble because they didn't submit their papers quick enough or something like that. But I never followed up because I wasn't their neighbor at that particular time. I had been their neighbor for over 20 years.
Yeah.
Before
you have to notify the city quickly that you're going to sue them. Most things like that have to be done through insurance anyway.
Well, I don't think they were trying to sue them. They're pretty much putting in a claim against whatever insurance the city had.
Yeah.
But it was in the newspaper actually. It showed the tree on the two cars, and I think his daughter got out of the car, or his daughter got out of the car just minutes before the tree came down.
Mm-hmm.
And crushed both the cars.
Mm. Well, yeah, and the thing is that storms and trees, you never quite know. I've seen some devastating storms that that have happened in places, right? You can never predict when a tree comes down. It's like I've seen one place I was at. There was this old tree that everybody thought the next time there was going to become a storm ripping past here, that tree's done, right? But no, every other tree around it is collapsed, but that tree stays up there
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
solid,
Yeah. Anyway, my neighbor was a victim of COVID in the end, and he passed. He's only a couple years older than I was, but COVID took him.
Yeah. Okay. So Iran and USA have been holding separate meetings in Qatar to agree to continue discussions, and mediators have said they've made positive progress.
I don't know what's going on there. Recently, I think it was yesterday, Donald Trump threatened Oman, said that he would bomb them. He would drop bombs on them if they ever thought that they were going to get together with Iran to claim the Straits of Hormuz and to collect tolls or whatever else. I don't think Oman officially had said some weeks ago that they weren't interested in the toll thing, and that's not what they were going to do. They were not going to join up with Iran and control the straits for money. But Trump didn't like that. He wanted to make sure that they knew that they couldn't do that, so he said he was going to bomb the crap out of them. Nice fella. That's what I mean. Like, he's like kind of a loose cannon. He say anything, anytime. But I don't think that kind of strategy is going to work with the Omanis. The Omanis is one of the most stable countries in the Middle East. They even though that they border Yemen, you don't want to mess with the Omanis, really. I mean, they're just functioning quite nicely on their own. They don't bug anybody else. So why would you want to threaten them? But that's what the pumpkin does. Anyway, these plans have got to have a real problem here. The JCPOA that Trump keeps denouncing, the Obama deal, was a lot better because at least the Straits of Hormuz stayed open. Right now, the Straits of Hormuz are mostly open, and it depends on what kind of cargo go through there. What kind of tanker.
Unless you run it up on the shallow Omani side, yeah.
Yeah, and that was the whole problem with the Straits of Hormuz. There is a 2 mile, 1 mile corridor going one way and another 1 mile corridor going the other way in the deepest part of the channel. That's why it's there. Now there are passages through other places, but as we saw, the one ship, gets stranded because it went into shallow waters. It's trying to sneak around, the mightiest country in the world cannot open the Straits of Hormuz. I can't get that. So basically they have two options. They escalate and they go huge. Israel has threatened the Iranians again, saying the next time we attack you, it's going to be massive fury, sort of hinting that they will drop a tactical nuclear bomb on Iran. Iran doesn't seem to be too worried about most of that, but what they do want is Israel out of southern Lebanon, and the U.S. can't make the Israel, the country of 10 million or less than 10 million, get out of Lebanon. They haven't got any power over them. So that's the real mess of this situation here. Trump bought the story that Netanyahu sold him, and now he's stuck. He can't fix this. And he
didn't
sends
think
over
about it.
Kushner and Witkoff, who are not diplomats. They don't even know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
You know? They don't, like, when the Iranian delegation shows up, they've got scientists, they've got nuclear scientists there to answer questions. They've got people that know the geology of the Strait of Hormuz. They have got economists. They've got all that. And Trump shows up with Kushner and Witkoff. Witkoff, he knows how to sell real estate. Kushner knows how to grift anyone going this way or that. And it just doesn't come across well. And then they throw Vance into the mix. And what's he going to do? So no wonder the thing is going. Pretty much what is going to happen, basically, is going to be this constant renewal of the MOU. Basically, it's going to be just a continual renewal of that. Trump's going to beat his chest and threaten. Netanyahu is going to beat his chest and threaten. And I don't know. Eventually, the whole thing will sort of slow down. Meanwhile, I don't know. The only thing, they haven't got much on Iran. What are you going to do to Iran? You can threaten them all day long. And you say, look, we're ready for war. We've been ready for war for years and years. You tried to decapitate our leadership. You took out probably about 100 of our top leadership. And yet we're still here. And if you want to come, we'll fight,
Rick is right about this one. Weapons deals, there's a lot of them going on at the moment.
Yeah, well, Canada's
they have to rearm.
Munitions is one of the biggest businesses in the world. That's why countries like France and Britain and the U.S. have, and China and Russia they make weapons, and they make weapons and sell them all over the place. Yeah. And then the arms dealers, it's in their interest to keep conflicts going so they can sell more weapons. So basically, they'll sell, one side weapons, and when they get to be an advantage over the other, they sell weapons to the other side. So if they can keep those conflicts going as long as they can, that's good. Yeah. It is rumored that the U.S. kept the conflicts going between Iran and Iraq during the Iran-Iraq war back in the early 80s. They kept that going because they made so much money off of it.
Yeah. Absolutely. All right. Yeah. And, and again, this is a developing story. We know it's not going to finish tomorrow.
No.
Right. Okay. This was one that you put up that I thought was quite disturbing. An 11-year-old boy driving a pickup truck plowed into a group of Thai monks and killing eight of them. I don't know whether was this on purpose, or was this just a stupid incident by this kid getting into this truck and driving it when he didn't know how to control it?
I think that's probably it. When you go to countries like that, having a license or something like that sometimes isn't really checked.
Yeah.
You could understand the kid if he had a pickup truck, maybe he was helping his dad, or I don't know, whatever, how he ever got a hold of the thing. And whatever the circumstances is, 11-year-old kid was driving a pickup truck, evidently lost control of it and wiped out a bunch of monks who were making a pilgrimage from one city to another. And they hadn't left. They'd only been gone, I don't know, about a half an hour or so. But very, very recent departure on their pilgrimage. And there was a whole pile of them, and this kid lost control and killed 11 of them.
Yeah, they'd started this walk 30 minutes before the crash.
Yeah.
Right.
And it took out that kid must have been traveling, basically traveling, because I can't really see how he could have killed 11 monks without any that, unless he'd been really moving, or unless the monks were in a confined area which they couldn't dodge out of the way. But he must have been traveling.
Yeah. And could not have really been in much control of that vehicle. there were stories out there when I was living in Saudi Arabia. There were stories out there. It was like, okay, so what do you need to do to pass the driving test in Saudi Arabia? Put it in first gear, drive forward. Put it in reverse gear, drive backwards. If you land at the same spot, you're good. You pass. Here's your thing. But for a 5-year-old kid whose father just died because of a road accident, oh, here's your driving license because your poor daddy died, but your mum can't drive.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's kind of weird. Yeah.
Now this 5-year-old gets into a monster truck and he doesn't know how to drive.
Well, yeah. Well, in Libya, they had a very good, strict system. They had a panel of people that would come in and check your physical capability. So you go in front of a panel of people, and they would give you these little exercises to do to see if you've got balance and see if you have hand-eye coordination. And then you went to another panel of people, and they check your eyesight.
Yeah.
And then with me, because I had a Canadian driver's license, they accepted that, but I had to go through the preamble, and then I got my Libyan's driver's license.
Yeah.
But for the average Libyan, they have to go through that, and then they have to do a driving test as well, and a rigorous one too, not a foolish little one. The problem is with Arab culture there is that there's this thing called wasta, which means obligations of your connections. So if your uncle, who is blind in one eye and can only half see in the other, and has spasms, wants his driver's license, and you happen to be the chief of police or the examining official, right? They could put pressure on you, give old Omar here his license. And you can say, no, that's not a good idea, but you're obliged to get him his license if possible. If it then goes to the family, if then Omar comes up to the family and says, look, my nephew here, he's not giving me my license. I want my license. And the family of elders can say, oh, Omar, he's right. You shouldn't be driving. You don't see well, and you're not very well coordinated. But if Omar is highly connected and really insists, the family must oblige him, and the nephew must give him his license.
Yeah.
Because of cultural pressures. So those are the things that we don't see here very much. I mean, when I was a kid, you could buy your license through Volcano Pizza. That was the rumor anyway. So if you're an Italian and you didn't want to have to go through the test, you could bribe a guy through Volcano Pizza because it was right beside the testing ministry office. So you could buy your license through there. They caught a guy issuing licenses for I think it was $50. They were giving them for $50 or something like that. I can't remember the real deal.
I always thought the bad licenses came out of Cracker Jack boxes.
Well, I knew a guy that grew up in Quebec, right? An English Quebecer, but that was common practice, just to pay somebody off to get your license. Yeah. You didn't want to go through the testing process.
By the way, what we were talking about with the monks being killed, this was in northeast Thailand. It happened on Canada Day, and they were just starting out on a 260-kilometer walk. Pilgrimage, yes. Thank you for correcting me. And basically, this kid crashed a truck into them, and boys in custody, and will be and the statement was that it will be questioned once child protection officers arrive at the cop shop.
Yeah, it's a very sad thing.
Yeah,
very sad thing. I liked it there in Thailand. I was in. I remember I bought a bunch of food for the monks. That was in. I think that was in Laos though that I did that. But yeah, they're pretty cool. You can talk to the monks anytime. They're cool. I remember meeting one up in Cambodia, and I was just shooting a breeze with him, and I got a bunch of pictures with me and him. But kind of cool because I kind of just bumped into him when I was at Angkor Wat. I'm walking up to Angkor Wat, and we just kind of shot the breeze. I was asking him about Angkor Wat and all this other stuff, and he was, yeah, you could talk to these guys. It was like really cool stories they told. And another good thing about the Thai, the monks in Southeast Asia, the Buddhist monks and that, they take in the young fellas as sort of apprentice monks, but everybody knows that most of them aren't going to actually become monks. But if they become sort of apprentices to monks, then that opens education for them and it opens other opportunities. So there will be, the public will feed the monks, and the kids then can go and start learning stuff because schools and stuff are open to them. The other monks will teach them. And otherwise education is more expensive. And then they'll leave, but that's expected. So it's kind of like a service that they do. It's kind of neat.
Yeah. All right. Now, anything else in that?
No, it's just a tragedy.
It is. Yeah, I saw that you put that up, and I thought, wow, what a tragedy. And we talked about these sort of things whereby in the West, in France, in Toronto, we've had these use of cars to assassinate people or to kill particular groups. But this isn't one of those by the looks of it. It just was a bad incident, it's something that happened. As far as we can tell.
I don't. It was very unlikely that the 11-year-old would mow down the monks. They were so respected. They're so, like, it would be like a Catholic mowing down a bunch of Catholic priests.
Yeah. It seems to me it's like, I think probably the likely answer we'll see in a few days is going to be the kid stole the vehicle and then couldn't control.
I don't know. I think a kid has probably got the vehicle. I don't know if he had permission to drive it or whatever else, but he was 11 years old. Quite often, like if they're helping on the farm or something like that, you can see kids on scooters and stuff driving around. The problem, the only thing that limits them from driving anything is the cost of the scooter or whatever it is. Once they can buy one, then they've got one. But that's normally their mode of transportation over there. So he had a truck, the kid. So I think there's going to be a lot. Him aggressively mowing down monks is not the story here. It's the fact that 11-year-old got a hold of a truck. But then again, I knew guys here that stole cars at night. They'd be like 13 or 14 years old. They steal a car and they drive it around at night and then park it back where they found it. They would just go like joyriding,
Yeah. But again, an 11-year-old is kind of, I can see that happening if you're 14, 15. And many 14, 15-year-olds have typically started to have those unofficial lessons around the car park, with your dad.
Yeah, but Anyway, what else we got? Kind of flogged this one to death.
Yeah. Moving on. So Niagara College and Niagara Parks are strengthening a partnership with a new strategic partnership.
Yeah, it sounds good. It sounds good on the future. Like if you got kids or something like this might be an opportunity you might look into, because what the parks and Niagara College are going to do is strengthen their bond together, and the parks are going to start providing more work opportunities for students, and designing courses that would be useful to the parks, and that means not just tourist stuff. It means apprenticeships and so on and so forth.
Right.
So they do a lot of they do a lot of stuff in the parks, and they're just trying to help Niagara College design courses that would help them find suitable employees.
And presumably part of that is about people who are doing gardening type gardening, landscaping, that kind of thing that the parks are into. Also mechanics, also just general business management, I guess, would be something that they could assist with. I don't know what areas that may well be in that regard.
Well, yeah, but the real problem is to find,
Yeah,
like, they already hire a huge amount of students every year
yeah,
during the summertime, so they provide a service that way. That's a sort of symbiotic relationship where you've got high school and college kids coming to do their summer jobs in the Niagara in parks. But what the parks are more interested in this particular case is to help Niagara College design courses and stuff that would more benefit them.
The other aspect they're talking about, Niagara Park's continuous support of Niagara College's culinary apprenticeship program. That's an interesting thought.
Yeah, remember the Niagara College had a culinary attempt at sort of making chefs up. There at the Dunn Street campus, there used to be able to go there and purchase lunches or meals made by students.
You could, yeah.
Now the problem I found is that you'd get a student and they were experimenting with a certain kind of spice, and they would work on that spice. So you go there a couple of times and they'll be heavy on one kind of spice, and so you figured, oh well, the kids, the young person's discovered this new spice and putting it into everything. And so that's the only drawback I saw is like,
chili and cream pie.
Yeah, basically, or their own personal blend of coffee with their own personal blend of ketchup in the same cup.
yeah, things that didn't really work. But Niagara Niagara College don't own that Dunn Street campus anymore. That's actually part of Niagara Parks, I think.
I don't know what's happening there. Is all I know is that as Toastmasters we couldn't rent the room there, which was very convenient for us up till that time. In any case, that's it for the Niagara Parks one. That sounds pretty good. So if you've got any young people looking for careers or looking to advance themselves, don't know quite what to do, kind of begin to explore what Niagara College is going to be doing for Niagara Parks, because there is a place where you can find a career and expand your career. And they do a lot of different things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but even if they end up with jobs for only, half a dozen students at the end of each year, that's half a dozen people that don't have to look for jobs elsewhere. You know what I mean?
Well, that's the whole point of the Niagara College getting closer to Niagara Parks. The whole idea is to design and get closer to training people for jobs that are required in the Niagara Parks. Yeah. That could be an electrician. You might need an electrician. You're going to need somebody who manages or goes for tours, whatever. They talked about apprenticeships here. So as soon as I thought that, what kind of apprenticeships? And if you're a young man or young lady and you want to get something, because an apprenticeship is something that isn't just locked into one site. So you might want to pursue an apprenticeship through Niagara College that, is endorsed by the parks. And that way, once you have a trade, then it's transferable to other places.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. All right. Moving on. So the feds admit that they haven't had enacted any policies towards advancing the promise to release 23.6 million barrels of oil, which was done early last year.
You mean the feds in the States?
No, I mean the feds in Canada, federal government.
to release. Oh,
to
I
release
didn't read that.
3.6 million barrels of oil out onto the market.
Oh, okay. Well, that was probably because they haven't got the capacity to do it. Basically, we don't have huge reserves like the United States does, like Russia does, like China does. They have massive, massive reserves. So, and the world itself collectively have oil reserves to get them over problems like we've just had, the Iran war that reduces supply and pushes up prices. You can limit that with your reserves by releasing your reserves. Canada, though, doesn't have any reserves, not much anyway. And that's basically because we are a producer. We're a huge producer, so we don't really think of having crude oil reserves. It's not like in the States where they, for a long time, they couldn't produce enough oil to keep them going, but now they can. But they still have strategic reserves, and that's a good idea because even if they aren't worried about how much oil they're getting, they might need to release the strategic reserves to stimulate the world economy. As we've seen here, a lot of strategic reserves. So I don't know in this particular case what 23.6 million barrels of oil they're talking about, because I don't really, that's the only thing I remember about.
Yeah, there was, across the 32 member nations of the International Energy Agency, they agreed to release about 400 million barrels of oil, which is the stockpile biggest stockpile.
Oh, you posted that this morning.
Yes, I did.
After you posted.
Well, I looked at the numbers of articles and I realized we didn't really have enough. Right. Because of the seizure of the Straits of Hormuz, there was the 32 members of the IEA announced the release of 400 million barrels of oil. Well, essentially, Canada hasn't released their block.
Well, basically, you're supposed to. It says here the Liberal government has not enacted. Oh, damn you! Enacted any policies toward releasing 23.6 million barrels of oil onto the global market. I just don't think it has. It doesn't have strategic stockpiles. It's going to promise this year to partake in strategic stockpiles among Western allies. I just don't think that we have the capacity to produce that much right now. We got 3.9 billion go to the United States every day, whatever we use, and I think another 800,000 or 1 million gallons go off the West Coast every day. Anyway, I didn't have time to read this article because I didn't see it.
Yeah.
Effort to drive down skyrocketing energy prices. Yeah. Well,
that was the whole
let's put it this way. Like Canada is supposed to sort of, it says, would add its own 23.6 million barrels to the mix. So they're looking for adding to the strategic reserves around the world, probably in this case, Europe. So we support the collective action, the $23.6 million of Canadian barrels produced our industry and coordinated with the federal and provincial governments. More world-class Canadian energy exported around the world. Well, yeah, I think it's just a matter of capacity. I don't think we have the capacity as yet to make that much.
Well, part of the problem, of course, with that is, of course, and there's about the third or fourth time we mentioned him, a former Prime Minister, Mr. Trudeau, who seemed to shut down all that kind of stuff, or put a roadblock on it.
Yeah, because they couldn't make their Paris Accord agreements, and they found a lot of political friction if they tried to reduce emissions from Quebec or Ontario. That's where the big votes are from. So they figured they'd make Alberta reduce its production. Therefore, we can maintain our carbon output, which was just damn stupid. When you think of all that, I think Carney, once he got into office, Carney must have been rolling his eyes like one of the first things he did was told everybody that the government is at least 40% larger than it has to be. and then they're going to have to start chopping these jobs off. They don't want to cut everybody off that quickly, but they're going to have to get rid of it. So I imagine when Carney came in, and we talked about yesterday when he said that the previous governments, the Liberals' idea of environmental policies was divisive and expensive. And we talked about that. And that was no surprise to anyone, that the Liberal environmental policies were just out to lunch. They were ideological and impractical.
And that was part of the trouble with the Trudeau Liberal government, is that he had his ideology, and and there's a difference between having an ideology and a plan to get there in 10 years' time, than shutting everything down today to make that plan happen today. And that's what Trudeau tried to do.
Yes. Yeah, he was out in the wilderness. Yeah, he was the woke. He was the woke Zionist. Like you can't figure this guy out. Like he was all sort of left-wing wokishness until it came to Israel, and then where he says he's a Zionist. He declares to everybody he's a Zionist. Not even Polyev did that. And he's a heavily Israel-centered dude, so he calls himself a Zionist. So Trudeau really didn't know what he was doing. I think he may have saved the Liberal Party and got everybody going with his new age sensitive gab. The world was open to that kind of talk at that particular time, but the reality has reared its ugly head, and we won't hear too much of the woke talk from Liberals coming up. Trudeau is an anomaly. I think it was. I find a lot of parallels between Trump and Trudeau. Like Trudeau was a drama teacher, Trump was a TV star. Like he's the guy on TV with that long show. He learned how to talk to people through television and media. Trudeau did it. Both were very, very popular and unrealistic, but both of them were very convincing. So I find a lot of both of them were born with a silver spoon in their mouth. Basically, Trudeau was born a wealthy. Trump inherited his wealth from his father. So, they're very, very similar in that fact. And I think neither one of them had too much connection with the average person. I don't think either one of them understands the plight of the average person because of their sort of privileged upbringing.
Yeah. All right. Well, the thing is, there's a couple of notes here that it says, Rick says Carney no oil on his watch, right? But also he said Carney controlled Trudeau.
Oh, you mean like Netanyahu controls Trump? Yeah, I don't know. I don't think. I think Carney tried to stay away from them because I don't think he wanted to be tarred with the same brush, because Trudeau invited him into the cabinet actually, and they went there for advice. And Carney, I think he wanted to stay a step away from Trudeau until Trudeau was out of the picture. There's no way Carney would have gotten too involved in the Liberal government as the way it was run. Once Trudeau was out of the picture and he was able to take over, is good. But I don't know if Carney controlled Trudeau. If Carney had controlled Trudeau, things would have been run a little bit more smoother. I don't think anything that I don't see any trace of Carney in the actions of Trudeau, except near the end where they went to meet Carney out west. The Liberal caucus went there, and he told them, get rid of the carbon tax. He told them things they didn't want to hear. And then desperate Trudeau figures, okay, I need this guy. He's the brains. So I'm going to get rid of Freeland and put him in as my finance minister. And there's no way Carney's going to take that job. Carney refused him. Of course, that upset Freeland. He was kind of a backstab to Freeland. And Carney himself, no way I'm going to be, no way you're going to be my boss. So when Trudeau's out of the picture, he can come in. But I don't know if that's, if it was his machinations, his machinations beforehand, the conspiracy theory that's just being suggested to us is that he was pulling the strings behind Trudeau all along. If he did, he was pretty well dumb. Yeah, well, give me some proof, Rick. Give me some proof. You know, all this stuff is being said. I mean, what I said is a bit of an overstatement that Netanyahu is controlling Trump, but we can see how that happens clearly because the Congress and the Senate are AIPAC heavy, and Trump needs a lot of AIPAC money and Israeli lobby, and we saw what he used against Thomas Massie, so that's very clearly evident. There's the evidence, but we're in a bad place. Yeah, definitely, we're in a bad place, and part of the reason why we're in a bad place is because the pumpkin running the show down underneath. He's threatening Canada over and over again. He's threatening us with tariffs. He's threatening us with this. Threatening us with takeover. Threatening us.
Well, we started the show with one of those threats. It's the threat of the border. You know how insecure our border has been. It's been a popular topic since the beginning of this current Trump administration.
Yeah,
you know,
when
we had some issues. That's for sure. We weren't patrolling the border properly, which we've now got the planes in the air all the time.
Well, right now, when they brought the military in to talk about the Canadian border, right after the pumpkin got in, and Congress and the Senate were there to grill the military about what was happening between Canada and the U.S. What they found out that Canada was very, very cooperative, and they worked very well together. The U.S. military and the Canadian military, they had coordination. Canada was a very little threat in everything. As a matter of fact, it was a real asset. And the only complaint that the American military had about Canada is not so much its cooperation, was that they didn't finance it enough. They could use more money and put more resources to it. Well, that's pretty much being solved because Carney could see that he's
fact,
Trudeau couldn't do that. Trudeau's too dumb, but Carney could do it. But we're in a tough spot now. Idiotic wars, the Ukrainian war, that's stupid. The genocide in Gaza, that was dumb. That could have been avoided. The Iranian war. Trump is not a stupid man, but he was made stupid by the IDF, and he got convinced. He didn't have enough people in his own cabinet to tell him this could be a real disaster. We could get stuck in this. It could be a forever war. So the war that was supposed to last 2 to 6 weeks is now well along the way. I don't know, 4 months now. I don't know how long it's been so far. And no end in sight, really. And the Straits of Hormuz are open or shut, depending on whether Iran wants them open or shut. So things don't look geophysically well. The American people are on our side mostly, but we got a grifter down there. So I don't know. We're in we could be in very tough shape, but we got to stand together. That's what we got to do. We've had challenges before. The United States has threatened us at other times in our history.
Well, I've been saying long before Carney actually made the statement. I've been saying before that in fact we need to be starting to trade outside of Canada, USA, Mexico, out of that alliance, and not to say there's anything wrong to be trading with other nations, with the EU, with the middle nations that
Well, that problem goes way back when NAFTA started.
Yeah.
When these negotiations come up, clever journalists went back in time and saw the objections to the original free trade deal. I remember the original objections where a lot of people thought they were going to lose their jobs, and they did, but other jobs came up to replace them. We did better than worse because of the free trade, and basically that the problem with that, the objections to it was the United States could control us. We're relying too much on the United States. If they decide to turn off the tap, we're really stuck. And that's really what's happened right now. We've had a threat over and over again about this or that in order for the pumpkin to get more money for his, to fill up his coffers because of his trade tax deals he's given them wealthy. So he needs a source of revenue, and so he's going to rely on tariffs. However, that came true, didn't it? Mm-hmm. So the voices of in the wilderness back then, it says, "Watch out! We're making ourselves way too dependent on one trading partner," and that's exactly what happened. And so I think what Carney has just said is just revive that old argument, saying, "Look, we really have to. We're going to be reliant on the United States mostly. It's obvious they're going to be our biggest trading partner because we're right next door and we have a lot in common. But when you are threatened by a federal government that makes up stuff, then what are you going to do? Right? So you have to expand your trade and try not to be so reliant on one customer. That's sad, but that's the truth.
All right. I think we should probably end it there.
Yes, and I will bring up Gaza again. And as we've seen, Israeli settlers have moved into southern Lebanon with the IDF. We find that in the West Bank, the IDF is helping the settlers burn down orchards and crush cars and anything else they want to do. And of course, the mainstream media will not report often about the Christian villages that are being wrecked because that puts a bad look to Israel, as if they couldn't get a worse look at all. The very idea that there's a whole bunch of anti-Semitism out there now because of this, I don't think so. It's the definition of anti-Semitism that's got me going. If you are against what Netanyahu's doing, then you're an anti-Semite because you're anti-Zionist, you're an anti-Semite. I don't see that at all. But what is happening, I guess, is some Jewish people or something are being harangued on the street. But that's happened to Muslim people too when they walk down the street after 9/11. Can you imagine all this?
Yeah.
I remember people yelling at Muslims on the street, "You damn terrorist," and all that. That's unfortunately that's what stupid people do.
Just because
most of us aren't that stupid.
Yeah, and the thing is that also the point when you get people who turn into a gas station and see there was a Pakistani guy at the cash register and drove their car straight out again. That kind of dumbness. Or stopped going to to the corner store because they were run by an Indian.
Or that Sikh temple that was firebombed because the guys who firebombed it didn't know the difference between Sikhs and Muslims.
Yeah, exactly.
So they saw a temple, they must be Muslims, so they firebombed it. Yeah, so ignorant, dumb-ass people will become more anti-Semitic or more Islamophobic. But when you're talking about what's been happening now in the Middle East and the machinations of Netanyahu and his Greater Israel Project, et cetera, and what they're doing to the oppression they're putting upon the Palestinians, I mean, that's not anti-Semitic. That's just wrong what you're doing.
It's dumb, yeah. All right.
Anyway.
Yep.
Without further ado, I bid you do. Pray for peace. Let's hope something happens to Ukraine. Get that done anyway. I don't know. Trump has no power over Netanyahu when it comes to I mean, the border piece was just a joke, and it still is a joke. But anyway, I hope something comes of it. Anyway, without further ado, I bid you adieu.